The night it all began was an ordinary evening in Maplewood, a quiet American town where secrets usually stayed buried under small smiles and polite nods. My name is Claire Reynolds, and at that time I believed I knew every detail about my best friend, Emily Carter. We had grown up together since childhood, shared countless sleepovers, whispered our first crushes under the covers, and held each other through the losses life threw our way. But nothing could have prepared me for the night. She came downstairs with a jar in her hand and changed everything I thought I knew. It was late summer, the kind of evening when the air carried both warmth and unease, as if the fading sunlight was reluctant to let go. Emily had invited me to stay over at her family's old colonial house while her parents were away on vacation. I had always loved that house, its creaky staircases and wide porch, but that night it felt heavier, as if the shadows pressed closer. We had planned a simple night, movies, popcorn, and laughing about the silly things we used to do as kids. The movie had ended, and Emily went upstairs to grab something. I stayed in the living room, scrolling through my phone when I heard the soft, deliberate creak of the stairs. I looked up, expecting to see her bounding down in her usual cheerful way. But instead, she descended slowly, step by step, her hands clutching something. When she reached the bottom, I froze. She was holding a jar. At first glance, it seemed harmless, a mason jar with something dark swirling inside. But the look on her face told me this was no ordinary object. Her eyes glistened with a mixture of fear and determination. She set the jar on the coffee table in front of me, without saying a word. "What's that?" I asked, my voice shaky. Emily sat across from me, curling her legs beneath her. "This is something I've never shown anyone, not even my parents." I swallowed hard. "Emily, what do you mean?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice as if the walls might be listening. "When I was 13, I found this jar in the attic. I thought it was empty at first, but then it started changing." I leaned forward. The jar looked like it held a cloudy liquid, but every time I blinked, it seemed different. Sometimes darker, sometimes shimmering faintly as though it held light. "I don't understand," I whispered. She nodded almost to herself. "Neither did I. But it's connected to my family. My grandmother left it here. I think it's the reason strange things happen in this house." A chill ran down my spine. I had always felt uneasy in that house, especially upstairs in the narrow hallway where portraits lined the walls. But I had dismissed it as imagination. "Why are you showing me this now?" I asked. Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. "Because last night, I heard a voice. It came from the jar, and it said my name." My heart pounded. A voice. Yes. And tonight, I don't want to face it alone. We sat there staring at the jar, the silence between us thick with unspoken fear. Suddenly, the jar rattled. Just a small vibration, but enough to make me jump back. "Emily," I gasped. Her hands trembled, but she didn't move. It only does that when someone new is near. "What does that mean?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. She pressed her lips together. "It means it knows you're here." That night stretched longer than any I'd ever experienced. We didn't sleep. Instead, we listened, to faint whispers that seemed to rise and fall from inside the jar, to creaks in the house that had no source, to the way the shadows seemed to shift when we weren't looking directly at them. By morning, I was pale and exhausted, convinced it had been my imagination. But Emily wasn't. She looked even more determined. "Claire, I need your help. I think the jar holds a piece of my grandmother's past. Something she didn't want anyone to find." And that was the beginning of a journey that would take us deep into hidden family secrets, old diaries tucked away in forgotten drawers, and a mystery that spanned generations. We discovered that Emily's grandmother had once been part of a secret society that believed memories could be preserved, not in photographs, but in objects. The jar wasn't filled with liquid at all, but something far stranger, preserved fragments of memory. And the more we listened, the clearer the voices became. At times I swore I heard laughter, other times cries of warning. One night, as thunder rolled outside, the jar began to glow faintly. Emily reached for my hand. Claire, it's happening again. We leaned in, and a whisper filled the room, clearer than ever before. Find the letters. The days that followed turned into a hunt through the house. We searched under floorboards, behind old wallpaper, and finally in the attic, where dust coated every surface like a blanket. That's where we found them. A bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon, written in Emily's grandmother's delicate script. The letters spoke of regret, of choices made in desperation, of a jar meant to protect something too dangerous to destroy. Emily cried as she read them aloud, her voice shaking. She wasn't trying to curse us, she was trying to protect us. But protect us from what? The answer came weeks later, when the jar finally broke its silence in full. The whispers turned into a steady voice, one that warned us of a man who had once sought the jar, believing it held the key to controlling memory itself. And though he had died decades ago, someone in town had taken up his search. The night we realized this, we weren't alone in the house. Footsteps echoed where no one should have been. A shadow moved at the edge of the hallway. Emily and I clutched each other, the jar glowing brightly between us like a beacon. It was then that I understood. The jar wasn't just a secret. It was a guardian. And anyone who tried to take it would unleash something far worse. The story of that summer still lives with me. Not just in memory, but in the way I wake at night, convinced I hear faint whispers calling my name. Emily keeps the jar safe now, locked away in a chest her grandmother left behind. But every once in a while, when the air grows heavy and the night is too quiet, she swears the jar still glows. And we both know the mystery isn't over.